Welcome to Shul.com. We are talking about Lavan HaArMeni. He's a very interesting character. Don't forget that his sister is Rivka, and he has 4 daughters, Rachel, Leah, twins, and Bilhah, Zilpah, another set of twins from a different wife, and they also become imahot. So we want to understand this guy and who exactly he was. So it says Lavan lo nolad ela b'zchuto shel Avraham Avinu. He only was born in the zechut of Abraham. Why? Ketzad Milka hayta akara. Milka, the sister of Sarah Imenu from Haran, she also was barren, just like Sarah Imenu. Sarah, when Sarah Imenu ended up getting pregnant, when Abraham Avinu prayed for Avimelech, nifkedu ima kola akarot, all the barren women that were around, they ended up getting pregnant. So she ended up having children. Milka ends up having 3, 6, 8 children. One of them is Betuel, and the Betuel is the father of Lavan. Now, Abraham Avinu marries Sarah, which is his niece, and Nahor marries Milka, also his niece. Why do they marry those? Because Haran was with Abraham Avinu in Aram Naharaim. When Nimrod tells him to go jump in the furnace, they both jump, Abraham and Haran. Problem is, Haran ended up getting burnt to a crisp, and Abraham survived. So because of this, Abraham took one of the daughters, and Nahor took another, and they built their families from their family. Okay, next one in the Zohar. Chelek Aleph Kuf Lamed Gimel Amud Bet Vayishel Lechem Kedma El Eretz Kedem Umehahi Eretz Kedem Yatza Lavan Ubeor Ubil'am Beno Vechol HaMechashefim. So when it says Vayishel Lechem Kedma El Eretz Kedem, that Abraham sent them to Eretz Kedem from Ketorah, that Eretz Kedem in the east is where? That's Aram Naharaim, or what you would call today the area possibly of modern day Armenia, which we're going to tie into in a short time. And so that's where all of the kishuf, all the witchcraft, black magic, all that voodoo, all that stuff that originally, what was the source of it, came from the education of Abraham Avinu. He gave to them as gifts. And those have power. They have the ability to connect to demons and to the Satan, but also to go to a higher spiritual level just using tum'ah, using the impure way. And Lavan and Bil'am and Beor, that was their forte. Next one. In the Zohar it says Lavan Avi Beor Haya. Lavan was the father of Beor. Why does that mean anything? Because Bil'am's father was Bil'am ben Beor. So that means Lavan's grandson was Bil'am. Lavan wanted to kill Yaakov, and Bil'am, he doubled down. He also was the greatest prophet that ever lived. I saw in one sefer that he was greater than Moshe Rabbeinu in prophecy. So he was on a very high level, and the reason why Hashem did that is so that the other nations of the world could never say that they didn't have a prophet as great as Moshe. Otherwise, they would say, listen, you gave them Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest. Because of that, what do you want from us? No, Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest prophet for the Jewish people, but amongst the non-Jewish people, there was also a prophet, and that was Bilam, and he was a tremendous prophet. He spoke to God also. Okay, next one. The Zohar, Chelik Bet, Lavan Chacham Haya B'Chishuf. Kishuf, he was very good with witchcraft and magic. Ube'elu Ketarim Tachtonim. Ubazer Atzad Le'abed Yaakov. And he wanted to use all these types of crowns of knowing how to do Kishuf against Yaakov Avinu, but it didn't work because Yaakov Avinu had the power from Tahara, from the Torah. Lavan lo radaf acharei Yaakov lehilachem oto. Lavan never ran after Yaakov in order to fight him physically. Ki machaneu shel Yaakov haya yoter chazak mimenu. Yaakov was stronger physically than Lavan. He could have killed him easily. He had stronger children. We know that the Shevatim were Giborei Hayil. All of the original, forefathers were all warriors. None of them were weak. Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, all the Shevatim. We know that from Yehuda. We know Moshe Rabbeinu was a general. Yehoshua ben Nun was a general. These were not people that were pushovers. And Lavan knew that. Lavan was trying to run after him for one reason, to use his mouth in order to destroy him. It goes to show you that Lavan knew the power of words and also possibly the power of seeing. He probably may have wanted to put Ain Hara so you could see him, because certain powers of words work together with vision, and so he was probably trying to put them both together to destroy Yaakov, but never to actually physically fight him, because he knew that he would have lost on that front. So it says the next one in Sanhedrin Kuf Hey Amud Aleph, Hu Be'or, Hu Kushan Lish'atayim, Hu Lavan Arami. Kushan Lish'atayim is an individual Navi who fights Bnei Israel. Be'or is the father of Lavan, of Bilam, and it says here that they are all the same person. According to this, it says that Lavan's son would have been Bilam, according to this. That's another interpretation. Bilama, okay, next one. Look, this is brought down Nazir.
They're really related to each other.
Yeah, they're all related to each other. Listen, this was a really big family feud over here. This is brought in Nazir Tet. Halacha Aleph, what that means is Yerushalmi. Velama nikra shemo Kushan Lishatayim. Why was he called Kushan Lishatayim? She'asa shte ayot. He did two wicked things. Achat shechilil tashivuah. He violated the promise that they did in Gal'ed between Yaakov and Lavan, Yikar Sahaduta. Ve'achat shibed b'Yisrael shemona shana. And the other one, that he made Israel work 8 years. Okay. Lavan hu Kemuel, shekam neged umato shel El. So another one says that Lavan's name was Kemuel because he went against the nation of El. That's Bereshit Rabbah. And okay, next one. B'sha'a she'amar Yitzhak leYaakov, when Yitzhak tells Yaakov, Kach lecha misham isham bebenot Lavan. He says, take from the daughters a girl from Lavan. Adayin lo hayad Lavan banot. Lavan actually didn't have any daughters yet. And we know that this is true because he made a detour.
Why? He
waited. So
14 years was it?
14 years. Adayin lo hayad Lavan banot. He had no daughters yet. Because Yitzhak said from his word, the daughters of Lavan, what happened? Ota sha'anit abera eshet Lavan im Rachel. Right away she got pregnant, the wife of Lavan, and she ended up having twins, Rachel and Leah.
They were twins?
They were twins. They looked like each other. People make that mistake sometimes. It's Bereshit Rabbati. So they were twins, and they both came out. So according to this, it was Sarah Imenu and Avraham that were Mizakim Milka to have children, and later on Yitzhak ended up blessing Lavan. Now, before Yaakov Avinu appears, Lavan only has daughters, because he also has another wife, and he ends up having Bilha and Zilpah. So he ends up only having daughters. When Yaakov comes, he gets blessed and he has children. How do I know it? Because it says later on, Uvne Lavan. What do you mean?
So, Rachel and Leah were first, and then...
Yes. They were from the main wife. Okay. Ad shelo yarad Yaakov Avinu lesham lo nifkad b'scharim. Until Yaakov Avinu didn't come down to Aram Naharaim, he didn't have any boys. Now, by the way, it says here Yarad, he went down, but actually, if you look at the map, the area of Aram Naharaim is north. What do I mean Yarad? Because when you're in Eretz Yisrael, it's Aliyah. When you leave Eretz Yisrael, it's Yeridah. Yeah. So it wasn't actually the physical traveling that was going south; it was actually going north, and to get there. Lo nifkad b'scharim. He didn't have any boys. Kevan sheba Yaakov nifkad b'scharim. Right when Yaakov Avinu came down. So according to this, all the blessing that came to Lavan HaArami was from Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. First, Betuel would never have existed had it not been for Abraham. Then you have from Yitzhak that he ends up having daughters. And then you have from Yaakov, they ended up having boys. This we're going to tie into a very good question on the 4 parts of the old city of Jerusalem. Why are there Armenians there? We're going to get into that. Okay, let's continue. Vayaged Yaakov lerachel ki achi aviyahu. Achiv ani beramaut im akesh titapal. Okay, so what does he say here? When it says Yaakov to Rachel, that he is the achi aviyahu, the brother of my father. What do you mean the brother of my father? Rivka is the brother of Lavan. Okay, achiv ani beramaut. I am not the brother that way. I am the brother like him when it comes to wickedness, which means Yaakov was tamim. Was tahor, but he said, I know everything that this guy does. I can do just like he does and better than him. Just I control myself and to be tamim and on my midot in order not to go that way. Okay, it says here, Gemalav shel Avraham Avinu lo nechnesu lebet Lavan. The camels of Abraham, when it was with Eliezer, didn't go into the house of Lavan. Ad shepinu kol ha'avodah zarah mipenehem, until they got rid of all the avodah zarah from there. Now it's interesting, those were the camels of Abraham, how religious they were. If they saw a Buddha, or they saw some form of avodah zarah cross, they don't go into the house. That's the camels. So we can learn from the camels something. Okay, but next thing, it's Midrash Bereshit Rabbati. Vayarot Lavan el ha'ish. Lavan ran to the ish, the man. When he saw the ring and the bracelets, some say nose rings, some say other rings, tzimidim al yedei achato, on his sister, chashav shepisela ba'alea, he thought that Eliezer went with his sister. If that was the case, why would he give her all these gifts if he didn't go together with her? When Lavan saw this, that his sister had all these things with this other man, he went to go get his weapons to go kill Eliezer. His goal was to kill him on the spot. What are you doing? He was protecting his sister. What happened? Rivka, he was protecting her. Tala Eliezer shte gemalim al kapav ve'vinam et hanachal. What did he do? When Eliezer saw him, there was a stream over there. So Eliezer took in his hand, he picked up 2 camels in one hand and started walking over the stream, the Nahal, with 2 camels on one hand. When Lavan saw this, he quickly took those weapons and put them quietly back behind him, because he realized he's dealing with someone that was way stronger than he was. Kevan shera'azot Lavan nish'ar amdo. He stayed right where he was and kept silent. Amar mi yachol leharog gibor kazeh. He said, it's not going to work to get this strong man. En anu yicholim lo ela besam amavet. He said, the only way we can get him is by poisoning him with food when we bring him in. And so they pinu tabai, they took out all the idols, they tried to feed him poison, but it didn't work because the malach switched it. And we have a beautiful hadush that if you look in that story with Eliezer, you'll notice that the word ha'ish comes up many times, then ha'evid, and it interchanges, showing that there is another character there, possibly one of the malachim. So the question that I actually wanted to know, this always bothered me since I was a little kid and I used to go to Israel. Why does the old city of Jerusalem have an Armenian quarter? Like, what does this have to do with anything? Now we do know that Lavan, when Yaakov wants to leave, Lavan gets very agitated. Why? He doesn't really care much about Yaakov. He would kill Yaakov in a minute. But he realized that the moment that Yaakov came in, all the waters rose in the wells. He noticed that he went from having just a few goats and sheep, and suddenly he's got tons of flock and became very rich. He notices that he ends up having sons and boys from his wives. So he notices Yaakov brings a lot of berachah to town, and Yaakov is working for him, and that gives a lot of prominence to Lavan. If you look, it says, Vayomer elav Lavan. Lavan tells him, Im na matzati chen be'enecha. Please, if I found favor in your eyes, nichashti. What is nichashti?
I guess.
No, nichashti does. He used witchcraft to understand where was his blessing coming from. Vayivarecheni Adonai biglalecha. He says, I did it, and I found out that all of my wealth and success came because of you. Please stay. Interesting. So seemingly today that might be modern day Armenia. Why do I say it's modern day Armenia? I don't know this as a fact. It's only from research, because I come here as a learner and a researcher. But if you notice, let's look at the religion in Armenia. Armenia has 97% Christians in it, and they're members of what's called the Armenian Apostolic Church. It's one of the oldest Christian churches. It was founded in the 1st century after death of Yeshu, Yemach Shemo v'Zichro, and in 301 AD, it became the first branch of Christianity to become a state religion. So the one religion that was the anti-Judaism religion of Christianity, the first form of it was not the Catholic Church. It was this church, the Armenian Apostolic Church. very interesting that they were the first. And seemingly, unfortunately, throughout our history, the Christian church were not very friendly to the Jewish people, whether it was the Crusades, whether it was laws in the Holy Roman Empire, whether it was pogroms, whether it was not saving the Jews in World War II by the Pope. You seemingly see that the Christian religion was not very supportive. I know today, thank God, in the United States, we have evangelicals which are very supportive of the Jewish nation and of Israel, but that wasn't the case for
the Armenians are very pro-Israel.
So today we're trying to understand the question: what are the Armenians doing in the old city? But seemingly, if Armenia, which is Aram Naharaim, they kind of sound alike, Aram Naharaim, Armenia, Padan Aram, and they are the descendants of Lavan, it would make sense that they want to stay close to the Jewish nation, because their blessing of their ancestor Lavan seemingly came from the Jews. And so what I found interesting is that that is actually the case. And if you look, because Armenia, by the way, doesn't border Israel, it borders Turkey, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Iran. It's a landlocked country, and it's not even walking distance to Israel. It's pretty far. It's all the way up. It's northeast of Israel by a pretty big distance. And if you actually look of the quarters, I'll open this up for you here. The quarters of the old city, you can kind of see how it is. Take a look here. Let's show this up here on the camera. If you take a look here, you can kind of see it. You'll see that the four quarters, and you have the Armenians right there. What are they doing over there? And interesting is they border the Jewish quarter, and they have a huge monastery over there. And what's interesting, you'll notice them in Israel. How do you notice that those individuals is they wear all black? That's seemingly their dress. They wear the black long dresses. They cover their head, and they have a cross that they wear on their head. And so my question was, is this connected to Lavan? And so I did a little bit more research, and I kind of found it funny. Why did they call this guy Lavan? Was he white? As opposed to being black? Was there something about him that was white? I think it could have been Lashon Sagi Nahor. I didn't see this inside, but this is my Hidush. It could have been Lashon Sagi Nahor. What does that mean? Is that he always wore black. Because you ever notice, a lot of the people that do witchcraft and things like that, they don't wear no white. Who wears white? The Mikubalim wear white. You understand? But all those that did that type of magic, the witchcraft and everything, they wore black. And so that was probably his item, because back in the day, most people wore white. And he was walking around wearing black, so they called him Lavan, and a Lashon Sagi Nahor, which is the opposite term. And what I found interesting about this is that I did this little gematria over here. Let's bring it up here behind us. And if you take a look here, let me move over to the side. You can kind of see it. Or if you look here, you can see that it says Lavan ben Betuel. It's right here on the top. We can bring up the camera just a little bit so you can see it. If you see here Lavan ben Betuel, if you do the gematria of Lavan ben Betuel, I did it on the computer, it's 573. And if you take the word shachor begadim, black clothing, which seemingly could have been the innovation of this guy, it's 573. And so I found it interesting. They're still found next to the Jewish nation in Israel, and they walk around with black clothing. They're not Lavan, because they wear shachor, lashon sagi nahor, and God seemingly blessed them.
Also, if you look, the opposite of black is what? White.
Okay.
And if you go backwards from Lavan Betuel, you can get Lavan.
Where do you see that?
Lamed Bet Nun.
Ah, very interesting. Are you saying from here, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Nice point you brought up. But we could see from here that there is a connection, and this might be why the Armenian, obviously they're the first Christian religion, so they wanted to have their the Shefa come from Harabayit and from Yerushalayim, and so they seemingly have a portion. But just like their ancestor, they realized that the beracha came from being close to the Yehudim, and so that seemingly has stayed until today. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen. And not only that, I had a good friend. His name is Rabbi, and my parents are Lebanese, so we are Lebanese refugees that had to leave during the 60s and 70s when there was a war in Lebanon. But we were very close with a lot of the Armenians, Christian Armenians in Lebanon, in Beirut. They were very friendly with the Jewish people. We did business with them. They were close. Obviously, we didn't intermarry because they're different groups and different religions. But what was interesting, there was an old Armenian man in Lebanon. I don't know this personally. I know this from a very close friend directly from him, that the father was getting old, and he told his Armenian son, look, the Jewish people have always been good to us. They've always been near us. They've always helped us. They've always been respectful of us, even though we had different religions. And he said, look, one day they're going to leave Beirut, Lebanon. And when they leave this country, take my advice, don't stay behind, because usually when they leave, it doesn't work out well for the country. So please, when they leave, follow them wherever they go. If they go to France with them. If they go to Italy, go to Italy. They go to England, go to England. Go to America, go to America. Well, seemingly, a lot of the Lebanese community did split up and go to different places. One of the places they went to was New York. And this Armenian guy moved to Brooklyn along with us. He still lives, his family still lives near us in Brooklyn, New York. And it's unbelievable. And the guy, when he moved along together, he continued working with the Jewish community and living besides them, and he continued to be successful, and his children are still living besides the Jewish community in Brooklyn. And the joke was, he said, if you guys leave Brooklyn in America, I'm going wherever you guys are going. You're going to Israel, I'll go with you to Israel. I go wherever you guys got to go. I thought this was a nice point on it, but this was the original thing, like their grandfather. Their grandfather Lavan realized their blessing was coming from here, and so they stuck together. Nothing wrong with it. It's good if someone sees that being near somebody would bless them, then that's seemingly what they did. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen. We are reviewing a little bit about Lavan, and there are more interesting details to bring. Let's take a look here. It says that Vayarot Lavan likrato, that Lavan ran after Yaakov to greet him. Ratzah lenasheko ve'lo natan lo. He wanted to kiss Yaakov, and Yaakov didn't let him. Chibek oto misaviv bichdei lenasheko. He hugged him in order to kiss him. Venakaf lo taleset. And Yaakov ended up returning back a form of a blow in order to remove his jaw. Wow, unbelievable. That's brought down in Kalada Bati Gimel. Vaychabek lo Amar kesef hevi ito v'henes bekisav kevan shelo matza klum v'ynashek lo. What happened? He hugged him in order to see if he had brought with him any jewels, any gold, silver, any money, and he didn't see anything. So he went to kiss him. Amar shema margaliot hevi v'hechviam bepiv. Maybe he put those jewels in his mouth in order to hide them and save them. When he didn't find anything, Amar lo Yaakov mata sabur. What are you doing? Kesef heveti? What do you think? I brought money? Lo heveti ela milim vaysaper Lavan. He says the only thing I brought is words. That's brought down Bereshit Rabbah. Kevan sheba Yaakov lebeto Amar. When Yaakov went inside of the house, Batach betach hitmin mamono bimkom shehu leraglav. So he said, maybe he hid the money. I hugged him. I didn't see it on top. He didn't have it in his mouth. Maybe he hid it in his legs. Halach v'chafar margilotav. So he went and started digging under his feet. Umatza matmon zahav v'chesef. And he found under the feet of Yaakov gold and silver. Ach atzmi ubsari ata. This is brought down Bereshit Rabbah. Lavan tells him, you are from my own flesh, my own blood, my own bones. Amar lo Lavan, melech hayiti sabur la'ascha alai. I want to make you a king upon me. V'achshav she'en lecha klum. Well, now that you don't have anything, ach atzmi ata kemu ha'etzem she'ani tzarich ligrom oto. You're just like a bone that I have in my limb, in my body. But tani hinam, and you should work for me. He says, you've been working for me for free the first 30 days. If sharkin, Could that be so? Ella im sachara po'adim ba'asara. If normally I pay 10, היה נותן לו 5. He would give Yaakov half, 5. אם שכר הסבלים ב6. If the reward of the sabalim was with 6, היה נותן לו 3. He would give half. 3. אמר לו Yaakov. Yaakov tells them, מה אתה סבוד? באתי הנה להרוויח כספים? He said, you think I came here to make money? לא באתי אלא בשביל שתי גדייך. I only came for your two daughters, your 2 gedayim, your 2 small goats. כיוון שילדה רבקה עשיו ויעקב, when Rivka gave birth to Esav and Yaakov, נולדו ללבן 2 בנות, לאה ורחל. At that same time, they were born, Leah and Rachel, twins, to Lavan. שלחו איגרות אלו לאלו, והותנו ביניהם. They wrote a letter between the two and made an agreement. כדי שייטול Esav את לאה, Esav would take the bigger one, ויעקב את רחל, and Yaakov would take the smaller one. Next part. בשעה שאמר יצחק ליעקב, when Yitzhak told Yaakov, וקח לך משם אישה מבנות לבן, take from the daughters of Lavan. עדיין לא היה ללבן בנות. At that moment, Lavan had no daughters. I know that this piece argues with the previous piece, but we're quoting all of the sources that discuss Lavan, so you'll see that often sometimes the Midrashim and the Sfarim don't often agree with each other. So at that moment, Lavan didn't actually have any daughters. His wife didn't have any children yet. But because Yitzhak had said, from the daughters of Lavan, she got pregnant and she ended up giving birth to twins, Rachel and Leah, and that's in Bereshit Rabbati. Berachel bitcha ketana. So when Yaakov says, I'm working for Rachel, who's Rachel? Your daughter. And which daughter? The small one. Why so many words? I know that HaArMENIAN is a place of trickery and deceit and liars. I want to work for Rachel. Not Rachel in the shuk. Don't give me another Rachel, your neighbor. I want that Rachel, your daughter. And not your daughter Leah. Don't bring me another one from the market. Shema Rachel haketana. And he said, I want Rachel, your daughter. Why? Because then, he knows Lavan. He's going to go to the Beit Din and make Shinui Hashem. He's going to say, okay, Leah, your new name is Rachel. Rachel, your new name is Leah. So he's trying to corner him, but unfortunately that didn't work. Avi Bilha Bizilpa, Achia Shel Deborah. The father of Bilha Zilpa is the Achia Shel Deborah, the brother of Deborah Meneket Rivka. Deborah was like the assistant for Rivka. Ve'achoto haya shemo. Terem shenasa isha, when she got married, nishva shalach Lavan upedao v'natan lo shivchato leisha v'yada lo et Bilha v'Zilpa. So the father of Bilha Zilpa, that was the brother of Deborah Meneket Rivka, and Achoto haya shemo. That was his name, Achoto. Terem shenasa isha, when she got married, nishba shalach Lavan upedao, he sent Lavan to redeem her, v'natan lo shivchato, to redeem him, and they gave him shivcha, the isha, as a reward. He got the girl, v'yada lo et Bilha v'Zilpa, and he got from her Bilha and Zilpa. Vayasof Lavan v'gomer vayas mishteh. So Lavan gathered, and then it says he made a party. Amar lahem. He told them, Yodim atem shahayinu dechukim lamayim. He told everyone in the town, look, we've always had an issue with water here, where the water was difficult to get from the wells. But kevan sheba hasadik hazeh. Once this Sadiq came, so he told them, look, since Yaakov came, our water has been blessed and we've had a lot of success. So they said, okay, what's your plan? If you guys agree, I'm going to trick him. I'm going to give him Leah. Because I know that he loves Rachel. And so we get him for another 7 years. Amrulo, they told him, עשה מה שכדאי לך, do whatever you want. אמר להם, תנו לי משכונות, שאף אחד מכם לא יפרסם את כוונתי. He said, okay, I need some collateral from you, so that I know that you guys are not going to go behind my back and go and tell him this. נתנו לו משכונות, to give him all types of collateral. הלך וקנה באדם יין ושמן, שמן ואוכל. He went and took all those collaterals that he was supposed to return back for them not telling Yaakov about the Rachel, the switcheroo. And instead he went to go buy wine, oil, food. ולכן נקרא שמו לבן הארמי. That's why they called him Lavan HaArami, not only because he came from Aram Naharaim, but because he was a trickster like Aramai. She'af et anshe mekamohu rima. Even his own people that seemingly would have trusted him, he also tricked them. They all knew him as Aramai, but this guy was next level Aramai. Kol hayom bilu yachad ito, v'layla amar lehem ma atem kol kach smechim. So during the day they were together, and at night he asked them, why are you guys so happy? Amru lo gamalta lanu hesed bizchuto. He said, because you did such a great thing with us. You know, look at this. Now we have him for another 7 years. He said, yeah, pretty good job, Lavan. Vayu mishorim lefanav. And they would sing in front of him. Hi li 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 li. Why hi li li li? Hey le'a, hi le'a. They would be screaming. Echnisu et hakala v'kabu hanerot. When the kala came in, they took out all the candles, so it was dark. Amru lama kach. Why that way? Amar lehem ma atem rotim tiyashim kemochem. He said to them, what do you want? You want a tayash, like a small animal, like you? So what was another reason for them squeezing the li? Because what happened was they wanted to reveal to Yaakov what was happening, and so they started saying li. All the people were seeing that, so he thought it was part of like the chorus of everyone singing, you know, to celebrate instead of clapping their hands or whatever it was. In fact, they were trying to warn him. It's really le'a. It's li. It's le'a. And I guess he didn't pick up on it. The next part is Hishkim Lavan baboker. Lavan woke up early. Bikebetz kol anshe medinato. He gathered all the people of his Medina. Kiratz Yaakov acharav ubikesh lahorgo. Why? Why did he gather everyone from the town? Because when Yaakov Avinu woke up, he wanted to go and kill Lavan in order to reward Lavan for what he had done, or maybe get him back for what he had done. Nichashti vayvarecheni Hashem bigladecha. So he says, I did the type of kishuf, a type of witchcraft, and it seems that God had blessed me only because of you. 1,000 elim ve'elef kevasim ve'elef izim. 1,000 rams, 1,000 sheep, 1,000 goats. Every month there was 3,000 more animals brought, as seen in the Zohar. Lavan should come and testify that Yaakov is not somebody who stole anything from him. And the Pasuk tells us that at any given point, he said whenever there was a terefa, he took the loss, Yaakov. He would sleep late, wake up early, didn't have enough sleep, and anytime there was any missing animals, Yaakov covered. Let's put that in Avodah Zarah Gimel Amud Aleph. Kol davar shaya Lavan matne im Yaakov haya chotzel bo 10 pamim lemafreya. Every time they made an agreement, Lavan Yaakov, he would go back 10 times. Next part. Tzafa HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ma Lavan atid la'asot im avinu Yaakov v'yatzad tzoreh kayotze ba. God saw in the future what Lavan was going to do with Yaakov Avinu. Vayatzad tzoreh kayotze ba. And it was a narrow path. Yaakov ro'eh et son Lavan anotarot. And Yaakov would shepherd the leftover sheep of Lavan. Shehem notar ra'ot va'akarot. That those were the ones that were the not good ones, and the ones that were barren. That's what they call them, the notarot. Vayugad Lavan bayom hashlishi. They told Lavan on the third day, derech pigomer, and that is derech shivat yamim, and then the path of 7 days. Ma she'alach avinu Yaakov b'shivah yamim halach Lavan bayom echad. The path that Yaakov did in 7 days, Lavan was so nervous to catch up, he did it in 1 day. Also, because Lavan was probably with one person or a few people, as opposed to Yaakov, with all of his flock, his sheep, the goat, wife, children, and all of his assets. See that next part. He said that the daughters tell the daughters of Lavan, Rachel and Leah says, we are like strangers here. Anything that Lavan saw in the house of Rachel, you would take it. When the children saw that, Amnu, we're embarrassed of you. Every time you see something you like from us, you just take it. And now that you're missing your idols, suddenly you're worried about where they were. Where were you the whole time? You were stealing everything. Every time someone would go to bed, sleep, you steal from us. When we're awake, you steal. Now suddenly you're worried about these little terafim that went missing by you. Everything that he had, we stole. He stole Lavan. Vayashuv Lavan limkomo, and Lavan went back to his place. Limkomo harishon. What do you mean limkomo harishon? Where else were we going to go? נכנסו ליסטים לתוך ביתו והיו מחפשים בו כל הלילה והעיני. What happened? When Yaakov left and Lavan was running after him, came bandits into his house and they were looking for him all the night. And they couldn't find him. They ended up stealing from him everything, and he became poor, and he went back to zero, right where he had started before Yaakov came, and everything that he had gained, amassed, went down to zero. It's an unbelievable piece, the second part into the life of Lavan and some of the midrashim that are and gemariot on it. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen v'Amen.